Might not be the best one, but we definitely have some. And we are live this week on the NABLL Weekly Update. We have Tim Semish of the Nashville Ignite and Nate Jobson of the Thousand Island Spirits, a team that I've gotten to film a couple times, and hopefully we get to stream a couple more of your games as well. You actually are one of the first games of the season, Nate, as a brand new GM. You're one of the first games. I mean, how does that end up? You're just that motivated up there. What happened?
We're ready to get started, bud. And we have our playoffs are at the end of July, so we need to kind of fit everything in pretty quickly.
Make sure everything's good to go. Yeah, it's definitely it's crazy how fast the season seems to like fly by, and it's you got the season was kind of shortened up this year. Now, Tim, you're a member of the NABLL board, so you can kind of speak to this as well. They shortened the season up, and it seems to me like it was so we could get more college guys involved in the game.
Yeah, that was our primary reason. At the end of the year, we sent out kind of a review questionnaire, and we got everyone to fill it out, from rules to dates and all that stuff. So, and the main thing was a lot of teams, especially come regional championships, they were like, "Hey, I was losing guys. Either they were getting pressure from their college coaches to not play because they didn't want to get hurt, obviously, or their fall ball started and they had to go back. Same thing with nationals; teams were just losing guys. So that was our primary reason. And then a couple teams just asked us to condense the season just so they can kind of do what they're doing up in the Northeast. If they kind of plan throughout the summer, having it into September, teams felt like it was like too spread out. So they're just asking to just condense it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's going to lead to some really good lacrosse. And I mean, that was one thing at Nationals. You saw like Collar City. It's a team that has a lot of young guys, and they kind of weren't able to travel as well. I mean, plus they had their GM happened to have a wedding that he was in. That doesn't happen every year, you would like to imagine. And Cody Kilcoyne, one of their, I'm not sure. Do you know Nate? Nate, do you know Cody Kilcoyne at all?
I actually don't.
Okay.
I'm sure I played against him before because we've all played against each other before up here, but I don't personally know him.
Yeah, he's originally, I think he's from Messina.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he played juniors up in Canada, I believe, and then ended up moving down by me. And hilariously, I met him through Collar City, and he owns a farm in the same town that I live in. His sister,
Oh,
it's like
nice.
a family farm. He's their salesman, and he is a phenomenal lacrosse player. I got a ton of highlights. He was a PBLA Binghamton Bomber. I mean, actually, you guys had what was it? A third of the PBLA had played in the NABLL at some point. I mean, so there's a lot of talent in this league.
Yeah.
Now, how did Tim? We actually were just talking beforehand, and I did not know that you played for the Tennessee Titans, but you did. So you were a monster athlete. And when did lacrosse enter your life?
Middle school was when I started playing lacrosse. I'm from Nebraska originally, and it was kind of growing when I was growing up there. I played travel hockey growing up, and we would always we'd go north to Michigan and even across the border, and we would see kids in the parking lot getting ready for their lacrosse seasons. I'm like, what is that weird thing? And then I think my dad saw a league pop up when I was in middle school, and then I started playing it. Fell in love with it instantaneously.
It's hard
But
not
as
to.
yeah, it's hard not to. But in Nebraska, there just wasn't a ton of coaching and wasn't a ton of resources. Like I was on the first travel club, and we got shelled in Vale when we went out there, and then when we went out east, we got killed even worse. Um, there's just dads and friends, trying to coach. So I was better at football, so I went the football route, played college football, bounced around the NFL for a little bit. But that's what brought me to Nashville. Even when I was still under contract with the Titans, I was going and playing in like pickup games and pickup leagues, and just got to know the guys, got to know the like box crew that traveled a lot. And then we got together, and IBLA was still around, so we put a team into that. Now we're here.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, Nate, you also you were a basketball player for a while. I know that. I had never actually played until high school was when I first started playing, and that's how I knew Paul. Is Paul was my coach out at MVCC. Jobson, who actually you're a year older than me, I think, but you went to Utica College. We went to college like 15, not even probably 5 minutes away from each other, where the two colleges sit. and I never met him until now. It's just like a really funny how small of a lacrosse world it is up here.
You guys probably really drove past each other every other day. You didn't even realize it.
Yeah, definitely. And he was playing for Paul with Tri City at the time, and I was playing for Paul during. I played at MVCC. Didn't really have the grades, or the only reason I actually ended up going to college was to play lacrosse and hockey. I was like, oh, cool, I can go play for a couple more years. This sounds like a good time.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, that's how a lot of us are now. Speaking of the talent level that we had, and obviously there is a lot of athletes, but there's something to be said for every team seems to have at least a guy who's been around box lacrosse. Like most teams have gotten a coach. Actually, Nate, you have two really superstar coaches this year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about them? Oh, you muted yourself, Nate.
Uh,
Well, while we're waiting for him to unmute, we've got Travis Cook
There
and
we
Mike
go.
Bennett. Oh, there we go.
Sorry. Yeah, so Travis Cook is one of my coaches. That's Alex's father. So that was an easy one because Alex plays for me, and again, he's one of my best friends. And uh, you know, he talked about wanting his father to coach and have an opportunity to coach again. He's an older guy. He's in 8 lacrosse Hall of Fames. Um, a couple of Knucklesassanies in the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame, uh, in the Syracuse Greater Sports Hall of Fame, the Lafayette High School Hall of Fame, Oswego Hall of Fame. He's in a bunch. He's in 8.
Yeah, the Oswego. Yeah, he is.
Because
It's
he played club ball in Oswego. He actually was supposed to play for the Dallas Cowboys. Actually, I heard he got drafted to them and decided to not do that. I don't know the details, but he was a big time athlete in his time, and he played senior B ball until he was up in his 50s. So he was a player, big lefty shooter. His son's righty, but big guys that can shoot. And then Mikey, kind of, I think we reached out to each other. It's kind of weird. Like he was reaching out to me at the same time I was reaching out to him, and it kind of just worked out. He's an 9-time NLL player. As he coached the juniors world team last year and won a gold, I believe, and it just worked out that way. He was supposed to coach for a team, and then wasn't ended up coaching for a team, and then I kind of just worked out. He said yes immediately, pretty much the first conversation we had. I'm excited about growing the game and teaching people in my community, because in my area, lacrosse is strong, but box lacrosse is no presence.
so you have several famous lacrosse players in your area. You've got a lot of guys that are box
Yeah.
lacrosse players. Um, you know, Coach Benedict, that's one of those like there's, and I don't want to group him. That's almost a common thing up there is to have several years of NLL experience since,
Yeah.
basically the only thing was the NLL around? Because if it was, it's guaranteed that Aquasasne has a ton of players that are playing in the NLL. So really, it's
Yep.
just a matter of what years you're talking about. But on top of that, you have for all the field players out there, you are right from, I mean, it's very close, anyways, to where the Powell brothers and the Powell family is from.
Yep. Absolutely. I grew up playing against Mikey Powell. He's a year older than me. And Ryan and Casey are from. So I obviously, you look up to those guys while you're playing, and I got to see him play. Like I got to see Ryan play in high school, and college, like when he went to Syracuse, and we'd all take the bus down there. Carthage was in my league, so I played against them. In my high school, General Brown is one of the oldest programs in the area too. Carthage actually didn't even get lacrosse until I believe it was the 80s. So, it's lacrosse has always had a presence here, and box lacrosse just never has. There was a league a long time ago when I was a young boy, but I didn't play in it. I wasn't really into lacrosse as much at that age. They had a box league in Watertown at our ice arena on the concrete, but that kind of went away, and never again was
Well,
there a presence for box.
plus, I mean, the one thing is like Tim was a football player, so he's used to contact. Not all field lacrosse players jump in. I know several guys who have played field lacrosse that I've brought to box games or have, as kids, introduced them to we do a very modified version of box, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I want to play box." I was like, "We're just trying to teach kids how to pick rebounds up and shoot off the glass." We watched one of the Can-Am games or a Junior B game so the kids could really see how old they were, and they were just like, "Yeah, no, I don't know if I want to play box. It's a very physical game." I mean, yeah.
for
So
sure.
Tim, you were a tight end in football. I mean, that athleticism is basically the perfect build you would think for a lacrosse player because you're not so big that you can't run. You get the speed, you get the stamina. I mean, and lacrosse is such a Jim Brown, was a phenomenal lacrosse player. It just happened to be there's more money in football. Otherwise, really, he's one of those guys like a legendary Syracuse guy. Yeah, there's so much talent. I mean, how was your transition into it coming from hockey? Did you first play box or you had to play field for a while?
I played field. There wasn't any box when I was growing up. I truly didn't know what box lacrosse was, other than if you guys remember the old PlayStation Blast, like Blast Lacrosse. That was the old, like, I think MIL or something like that video game from like 2002 or something like that. That was the first time I ever saw a box because it wasn't on TV back in those days. So I grew up playing fields, and then I truly didn't know what box was until probably late college when I started. I just like stumbled upon NLL games and would watch it like on ESPN like late at night if I could find a game. But yeah, I mean it was fun to transition from football to lacrosse because it kind of brought me back to like hockey growing up and then the field game. I mean, I played pole, so it was a little weird having to play with a shorty the whole time. But being able to like cross check guys as soon as like I learned the rules of like, oh, you can cross check, you can slash. Like, there's a lot more physicality to it. I was all about it. It's like sign me up for that. But you're totally right with the field thing. We have that down here in Nashville. We probably get 10 to 15 guys every year that want to play box, and we do a modified pickup, and they're all about it pickup because there's no, there's some contact but not a ton, and then we have a training camp and it's like full go, and guys don't have rib pads, or they're wearing like the field soft rib pads, and of those 10 to 15 guys, maybe half of them make it to the second day, and then only like two or three actually stay because they got bumps and bruises, and they're like, yeah, I just I'll stick to field. Let me know when the field pickup starts. But it's a different game, but it's a fun game. I think you muted yourself.
Sorry guys, I was drinking some tea there. I do that all the time. But how have you like how did you adapt to the box game? Did you guys get somebody in your area or was it strictly just a bunch of guys that were like, "Hey, let's try this," and I was a hockey player, so I understand some of the positioning.
So when we first started, we had like a little pickup box league, so some guys knew a little bit, but I gotta give that credit. Nate Glazer was kind of like the godfather of box down here. He would travel all around the country with a guy named Westmoreland, and Mikey Gardner. Those guys and Brad Sage, they would travel the country and just hop on random teams. And they just went, they would go over and they'd play in Prague. I think Nate's been to Prague a handful of times. Oh, and Franklin Parr. Like, those five guys were kind of our core, and they kind of taught the rest of us. And then we picked up a part-time coach in Chris Cudmore. He grew up playing junior B up north, and then went to Mars Hill. I think he had a brief stint in the NLL, but he played in the MLL for a few years. And now we have James Redfern, who grew up in BC. I do not know. I cannot remember the name of the team he was on, but he was on a team with the Gate brothers in like the late 80s, early 90s up there for a couple summers. So we just by happenstance, like, somebody meets somebody through work and they start talking about lacrosse, and both Chris and James kind of came to us, just kind of a blessing in disguise that they knew the game. But yeah, if it wasn't for that original core group of guys, I don't think any of us would know anything at all. Like, most of us didn't even know what rib pads were until Nate and Mikey and those guys showed us what they were.
That's the thing is lacrosse really is a game best learned passed down. So I mean, going back to the Spirits, we've actually got a couple movie stars that are on the Spirits team as well. I mean, I'll let you you talk about that a little bit, Nate. You happen to have known those guys for a lot longer than I have, and they are a couple of guys. Yes, they did come from the Eddies, but it wasn't as much of a like competitive decision as it was. You grew up playing with those guys, and when I say grew up, by like when you first started playing box, it was with those guys. Was is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So Tyler Hill and Alex Click both. I've been friends with them since 2008. a very long time. 15 years is a long time to be friends with somebody. They both had the opportunity in 2012 to be in Crooked Arrows. Tyler Hill is the main character in the movie, Jimmy Silverfoot, and then Alex Cook is the face on the cover of the movie, um, and he plays. I think it's Ten Bear is the name of his character. He has a few lines in the movie. Um, but when they made Crooked Arrows, they decided they were either going to pick actors and teach them how to play lacrosse, or they were going to get lacrosse players and show them how to act, and that's what they went with, and that's why the play in that movie is so much better than any other lacrosse movie that they've done. It's accurate. There's a couple things that are far
If I
fetched,
if
right?
I can interrupt you for a second, it's hilarious.
Sure.
So the first time I saw Ty Hill play when we were at the Yetis Battle on the Barge, and the Battle on the Barge is coming up soon as well. But when we were at that very first Yetis game and I saw him, I was like, I've watched this guy play before. Ty has a very unique style, and the same with Alex. When you see how he shoots with that off of I don't know if you call it from the eyes of the stick, or I've heard people explain it as string theory, whereas
Yeah,
essentially you are standing somewhere, but Alex is like 300 foot tall. It seems like Tim, you can probably attest to this. But when you
yeah,
shoot, it's really where your arms are and the eyes of your stick are. The goalie looking at you might think he has position, but Alex has a way of reaching around and sneaking it in these tiny little pockets, and his shot is deceptively heavy. It just like thuds
yeah,
when it hits.
yeah. He kind of he cocks it up there and puts it in. And when you're 6'4", right, and then you're extending your arm another, what is it, 4 feet? You're shooting from 10, 11 feet in the air on a 4-foot goal. It's a different angle than goalies are used to seeing. A lot of the other guys are average size, so you can get a shot off, and you don't think it's even going to go near the goal, and then it's hitting the corner. And Tyler does have a very unique way of how he plays the game. You when you see him on the floor, it's him. He's everywhere.
Yeah. I played against him up in Onondaga the year before COVID. I remember half the guys on my team, like they saw him during warmups, and they're like, "Where do we know that guy from?" Like, and then finally somebody was like, "Yo, that's the dude from Crooked Arrows." And like
Yeah,
for the first like 10 minutes of the game, all these kids from Tennessee are just like starstruck that we're playing the freaking guy from Crooked Arrows, and he's out
yeah,
there just bouncing off people, scoring goals and stuff.
yeah. He's
Was
a
not,
good player.
yeah,
Yeah, no, like you said, scoring goals and stuff. That is one thing he does. And shout out to Four by Hill. He's actually started a lacrosse company, and it's something to watch. So we've been streaming the Onondaga games, and the he has a golden stick, and it's so cool to watch. It's like I don't know, it's very pretty as it just kind of floats through, and he's got a very unique like. He doesn't look like he runs. He just kind of flows out there most
Yeah,
of
he
the time.
glides out there, man. He glides.
Yeah.
He's just it's effortless, like a gazelle.
Well, and that's one thing where we're talking about like so in your coaches you can really attest to this. Your coaches are guys who grew up with the game, so it's thousands and thousands of hours. They throw behind the back passes like most American players are taught to throw left-handed, right-handed, to throw ambidextrous instead. And a lot of the box players you see they just throw it behind the back and it's like that's so much faster and takes so much less time than spinning and switching hands and doing that step. It's crazy just subtle differences like that.
Yeah, and one thing that's funny is like Ty Hill, for example, and like honestly, like the Thompsons, Mikey Benedict to them was like the guy to watch. He was the guy that they were watching and they wanted to be like Mike. Like people in basketball want to be like Michael Jordan. People in field lacrosse want to be like Michael Powell, right? Guys playing box wanted to be like Mike Benedict. So I'm lucky to have a guy like him trying to help organization get better and teach these guys. And they're really excited about having my local guys that don't have the box experience because these field guys that are athletic and strong and aren't afraid of some physicality, they have a lot of potential in the box game. And that's what, this league's all about is growing the game of box lacrosse in America. And, and it's a great opportunity for everybody. So I'm excited for the season start. Can't believe it's like 10 days away or something. It's nuts.
that's crazy.
it's finally here. It's so hard to believe. It's like, oh my goodness, because so much anticipation, and I've been going, and we're actually getting a little bit better with this. And huge thank you to you guys. But I think this is really what the game needs. Is one thing I want to stress to everybody this year is that the NABLL in putting this show on has made it so anybody who sends me their highlight goals. So if you have a videographer, if you have somebody who sits there and takes photos and has a bunch of still shots that you want to blend into a like a little highlight clip. We're going to take all of those and they're going to play in the background of like this show. So like right now we've got the chats up. The Spirits happen to have a bunch of people in the chat group so far. They're definitely, I would say, putting to
Good.
shame the Ignite and as far as numbers so far. But we've got 13 people, watching, and not quite everybody's in the chat. So we probably got some hidden gems. But the NABLL is a league that was started by GMs. So it wasn't a private corporation that was trying to, figure out a way to run a bunch of money. So, oh, here we go. Go Wheels now. We're getting a little trash in there. Trash talking. And actually, I think we are going to,
No trash.
no, but I do have to hook up with the Eels because they are playing the Yeti and they're home, and I love stringing from that rink. The Onondaga Nations Arena, huge shout out to them. They gave us a sheet of plywood and like put nice handrails up so you don't feel like you're falling on the bleachers. They have really made it, and I
Yeah,
am
that's a
willing
nice
to.
setup.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet. Yeah, Nate came and did the last game with me, the commentary, and there is an amazing amount of overlap in there. So you've got Ferris who plays for the Paper City team. You've got a couple guys that play for a couple different teams. The Can-Am overlap is impressive. The Eels, I know, have a couple guys
Yeah,
that are playing around. The Yeti, they're still kind of holding that roster a little close to their vest. I don't know what's going on with that. We'll get it out here pretty soon. And that's the
yeah.
other thing is if everybody updates the stats. And Tim, I'm going to go to you for this to kind of explain how important it's going to be and how much time you guys spent on the website. So that way, when we're doing this show, like right now, I've got streaming across the bottom the first games, and I said I was going to put the Yeti link in the YouTube and I actually forgot. I'm going to do that while you're explaining this. But we're going to have the stats streaming where either like the game tickets are for the PBLA, so we'll rotate that. We'll be able to play some highlights. The NABLL is a GM's managers league. You guys have done a ton of staff or stuff like that. I mean, I'll give you some time now to. I'll stop talking is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So the website, we had it last year, and I'll shoulder the blame. I don't think we did a good enough job educating people how alive the website really is. So people can use the stat tracker on the website. If you can do it on a phone, you can do it on an iPad. It's beautiful on an iPad, or you can even do it on a computer. It's really simple. It only takes one person to do both teams, so the teams can just agree to do it. And you can do shots, saves, goals, assists, hockey assists, penalties, what the penalties are, and it's got the scoreboard on there, everything. And you can run it simultaneously. If you don't want to do it live and you just want to do it later, you can do it immediately after the game. At Nationals, we were doing it live, and you hit upload. But the beauty of it is it goes straight to the website and uploads instantaneously to the website. So for everybody that was watching Nationals last year, checking the website, we want to be able to have living tiles on the front page of the website that have top goal scorers, top saves, penalty minutes if we want to get fun with it. And just the more people use it, the more accurate those stats will be. So, towards the end of the year last year, teams were getting frustrated with the power rankings, for example. Every week I would do the power rankings based off of whose games were uploaded on the websites, and teams would be like, "Oh, we're 6-0." Well, the website says you're 2-0. So how am I supposed to, rank you in the top five if you're 2-0, or 2-1, whatever it was? So just the more the website is used, the more the website is like fun for everyone. But it also helps us with sponsorships and just getting more eyes on the league, and also helps teams recruit players. And then as well, new feature this year for the website is we actually have Reddit style discussion pages on the website. So you can go on there for drills, you can go on there just to talk crap. Obviously keep it PG-13, but we're trying to make the website a Facebook, Reddit of box lacrosse. Resources, communication, the whole 9 yards. You muted yourself again.
See, that's how I stop talking. I don't actually ever stop talking. I just mute myself from time to time, and it gives you guys a chance to talk. But
Fair.
the as guys have their stats and stuff uploaded, if the internet speeds, like when we're at Battle on the Barge, anybody else who's playing that weekend, if they're updating in real time, we will have the real time stats streaming at like intermissions, and we're going to try to make this league. Yes, I get to drive around the East Coast a lot. We're actually putting together a road trip, hopefully going to hit I want to hit at least one division summer and try to, do this. That was something else that, the NABLL has made sure you guys. Now, how does that actually work? Could you explain to anybody who doesn't maybe know? It's what is it, 51% of the league?
Yeah, so 51% of the profits of the league have to go back into the league. So this year, our main focus was referees, referee educating, recruiting, just more resources. We're trying to get it to the point to where we can. I don't think we have it officially this year. I don't want to speak out of turn for Dave, but we're trying to get it to the point to where we can handle referees, scheduling referees, all that. Because I know that's a pain for a lot of people, especially places like here down in the southeast or out west that don't have as many box officials as they do up north. But that was our main focus, and then obviously updating the website, doing more stuff, putting a little more money into social media. Obviously, running a show like this, having to have someone like you, Greg, so we don't have to do it, and we can more disperse the money back into the box community. So it's written in the league bylaws. As long as the league will be around, 51% of any money that comes in profit wise has to go back into the league in some type of investment. Back on mute again.
Sorry. So Nate, what I
What
was
are you
saying
doing
is,
over there, buddy?
I'm gonna stop muting unless I have to cough. Then I'll just leave it alone. Nate one time told me that you try to mute yourself when you're drinking water. I'm obviously not as fast or as smart as Jobson is, so I can't quite seem to figure out how to unmute myself after I do it. But Nate, you were a player the first year. You had no like board or GM involvement, and then you happened to enjoy this league so much and wanted to grow the sport of box lacrosse. You decided to jump into a GM. Now having get it, having had a few months, you started this a year ago pretty much. You've spent a lot of time and energy. How do you feel about being
Um,
a GM or being on both sides?
it's hard to do everything. And there's just things you don't think about, and and when I originally came up with this idea, it was in October, I guess. So about 8 months ago. Wow, it's crazy. It's soon. Jeez. But about 7 8 months ago, I came up with the idea of doing this, and we've talked about it on other shows that we've done, but it kind of just it was an idea, and I was just going to write a business plan, and I was going to find someone in Watertown because I lived in Utica at the time, and I was going to say, here's a business plan, have fun. This is a great game. You guys should do this. And then kind of slowly, I started doing the things you do, like looking for a place to play and trying to find, those type of answers. And then I was in it. It's kind of, then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to do it myself. And,
Yeah,
you
that's how it
know, and
happens.
I
Yeah,
wanted to move home for the reasons that we know about, we haven't talked about, but with everything that happened to my family the past year, that's a huge reason why we're doing this and why we exist. Um, you know,
your
so
logo kind of incorporates that. It's really to see all the kids though that we saw. So I mean, yes, you have reasons for that, but one of the big reasons I'd like to think is, growing the sport of box lacrosse. That first event that I showed up to up there, you had what, 70, almost 80 kids?
yeah, we had a lot of kids. Here it is in the background. Huh? Huh?
I love it.
Um, but yeah, we had 70 kids sign up. I think about 58 to 60 ended up showing up. Some of those signups kids signed up twice. Um, but for the youth, that's the plan. The plan is to give kids an opportunity to play box lacrosse and get better at field lacrosse in that area. To develop skills because box lacrosse, you just get more touches, you get better in tight spaces, you get ground balls, you get everything. There's just nothing that you can do in box lacrosse that is not going to improve your field game. And Tim can speak to that too. Box lacrosse is just more touches, more action, nonstop. And field lacrosse sometimes can be like watching paint dry, which is sad because I love field lacrosse. But there's a part of that game where you're waiting to pick up the ball, you're waiting to get going again.
So,
Um,
yeah, I have to admit that since I started box lacrosse viewing and the Firewolves came into town, I haven't watched a field game. I have missed so many field games due to going to record, like driving across the state or driving hours and hours to go film a box lacrosse game.
yeah,
Yeah, instead of watching it, it's I don't know. I didn't even think they're very different sports. I don't think people realize how different it is. Now, one thing, Matt Johnson actually he started the on the our Onesquith Smoke team, which is also out of Bethlehem, that's near me. But he like he pointed out to me is the rebounds is so much bigger than people give it credit for. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's tighter, it's tougher, and all that," which is true. But really, when you think about it, one of the biggest things that it is picking those rebounds up off the glass and off the front of the net while somebody is like,
Did he mute himself mid talk?
he's
I
gone
did
again.
I accidentally hit it? I'm sorry.
The guy's gone again. He's always leaving us mid conversation.
talent right there.
Come on, man.
It is good. But what do you guys feel about that rebound comparison? Do you think that is one of the bigger things, or do you think, it really is the speed and the physicality?
No, I agree. Just because you think about it, like I coach high school, and when you look at like the younger kids in high school, it sounds bad to say it this way, but like kids that are learning the game almost kind of wreck the drills sometimes because if you miss a pass or something like that and it just goes sailing, and if you're on turf or like a nice grass field, it bounces and it rolls, and then he's got to run 30 yards to go get the ball. He's got to run 30 yards back. Whereas if you're doing, a 2v2 on the side and he throws a pass and hits the corner, it's just a live ground ball. And you just keep going. And then it's the same thing in the games. You know what I mean? There are stops and starts just like any sport, but you throw a bad pass or you miss a shot and it just hits the boards and ricochets and it's just right back into action. You don't got to, run 20 yards out of bounds, grab the ball, run 20 yards back and kill 2 minutes. So it's just constant go 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 go. They're the same skill sets, but two completely different sports sometimes.
Yeah, Paul's big on that when he talks about doing it with the kids. As always, I make sure I'm unmuted mid conversation. I'll keep my thumb on it. But he always talks about that. He calls it. You got little Johnny who runs over and misses the ball, and now in 10 minutes you've had like 3 passes instead of 30.
Yeah.
So how did you had that initial thing with the kids, and how many kids did you guys end up getting, Nate, that are still looking to be involved? Why don't you talk to us a little bit what you're doing? You coached a modified team this year, correct?
Yeah, yeah. I'm coaching modified lacrosse at IHC High School, which is a Catholic school, Watertown, that hasn't had lacrosse for 5 years. Um, and now we're trying to reignite the program. A lot of the comments actually are players on my team. Uh,
Oh, we got a lot of.
so yeah, yeah, we had play our last game tomorrow night, ironically against Thousand Islands, um, which was another coach or another team I was looking to potentially coach. And the reason I went to IHC is because I got a phone call from an old Utica alumni who also went to IHC. I didn't go there, but he did. And he asked me if it's something I would do, and I was like, I think it would be great to get IHC back on the map. I mean, they had all Americans one back in the day. Like they've had guys go to Syracuse, Notre Dame, Seattle, a lot of schools. They have a rich history of lacrosse, so I had an opportunity to do it, and we're doing it. We're actually 6-2 right now. 10 of my kids have never even played lacrosse before out of the 18. I'm pretty sure that's the number, including my goalie. So it's been pretty awesome experience, and just to give back, and that's the whole point of this. And with that, I'm going to develop a U15 and a U18 team. I've talked to Oswego and Utica about doing a U18, which is current 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. This summer, trying to do a couple, maybe a weekend events where we play a couple games, or maybe home and home somehow. I think the weekend method will work better with travel across and everything that goes on in the summer. Um, just trying to build the game and improve the quality of lacrosse in our area again.
Yeah,
When you modified, what do you mean by modified lacrosse?
that's
Okay,
seventh
modified
and
is
eighth
seventh
grade.
grade. Yeah, modified is 7th and 8th grade. Some schools are 7th, 8th, and 9th, depending on the numbers. Like Thousand Islands, they started lacrosse in 2016. I was part of. Actually, I coached that year. They have a modified team and a varsity team.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so they don't have a JV team, like a junior varsity, which is typically 9th and 10th.
Is it still
Because
full field and everything?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's full field. Modified is just 7th and 8th grade.
Okay,
That's all
cool.
it is. So in other states, I'm sure it's called something different, intermediate or
Now, what
Yeah,
advanced.
did you coach? Because you coached kids as well. Now, what grade levels are you coaching?
me.
Yeah.
So I coach. I did double duty this year. I coached the club team at Vanderbilt, and then I coach high school team Hillsborough High School here in Nashville. I've been coaching Hillsborough for this was my 6th year. Oh wow, yeah, 6th year. And then I try to help with like the local youth stuff. This next upcoming year, we're trying to take the Ignite and kind of branch because we do both field tournaments and the semi-pro stuff. So we're trying to branch more into kind of the youth game, do local clinics and stuff like that. I'm working on switching the LLC over to a 501c so we can do more stuff, kind of what Nate just did with like like box clinics, youth clinics, just kind of growing the game because it's big down here, but it's very stagnant. There's not a lot of schools adding lacrosse, so we're just trying to get a way to get more kids, more touches, more sticks and hands, kind of stuff.
And that's really basically how, a lot of us get involved with lacrosse is trying to pass it on. And that's most of the way we can give back. Now, you guys are providing a little bit different experience with this league, is it's definitely, I've been seeing a lot. It's the new semi-pro. And what I think, that really means is basically you can't expect somebody who's never had experience playing box lacrosse to make it to a pro box lacrosse level. You get some field players that they will because they are such athletes. Like if you had decided to focus on lacrosse through college, maybe you're that kind of athlete that you probably could have made it. If you had focused on it. Whereas it's just this gives the opportunity to people to play box lacrosse. If you had spent an extra 4 years playing box lacrosse versus playing football or hockey, you're gonna learn it. And basically, all these GMs here at Everybody's Focus is getting more people on the field and getting people a chance to play. And it's a very diverse league as far as you've got some guys who take it a little less seriously. It's a group for them to go get together and play, and they don't sell tickets. And then you have other people who are trying to make it an event so the kids come and because that's what they believe gets kids excited and they have a little bit of time maybe to donate to it. And really, that is how things grow. You watch somebody play it and you're like, oh, I can do that. So then you see somebody and then you get back into it. And we got another spinning spirits winning it all in the comments. They are all over the place in there.
First year
Hey,
team
it's good to have support.
would be electric. First year in existence, and then winning the Natty. That'd be electric if you guys could do that.
Yeah, and especially it's not one of
I
these
agree.
teams that merged from the IBLA, so they've been around for a few years. This is a legit inaugural team that's never formed before. And I don't know all the talent, but I know the four guys that I do know, five guys, actually more than that, probably six guys I filmed. Most of them can score. And what I've seen in this league, the biggest thing you need is the ability to finish. Every team seems to be able to muster a handful of athletes that you can throw up on defense that can kind of tie some guys up. And you need a couple of big defensive guys that really understand position. Brittany saying the Eels. And that is one thing. The Eels have a couple of players from Can-Am too, and they have that talent. But it really comes down to, well, at least in my opinion, a hot goalie and who can bury the biscuit. If you can't bury the ball, it doesn't matter how great you play the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they got talent. You guys got talent, and you guys got coaching staff and knowledge. Which, looking at nationals last year, that was where teams started to kind of take. I mean, Nate, you were there, but that was where you saw that like those runs and stuff like that was those teams that could make those mid game adjustments, make those things like that. So I'm curious to watch you guys play. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to admit it. We're going to be very good. Um, I don't have anything to hide. I don't need to hide my roster or anything. Um, that's silly. So I've had my roster posted for a while, and there's new guys that have come to light. With continued tryouts, and we had an event Friday night, and a couple more guys are going to be joining. And it's we're going to be good. We're going to be well coached. We're going to be fast. We got some guys that can score. So In my event the other night, I kind of designed one team to have a stronger offense and one to have a stronger defense, and it was 6-6 at halftime. Um, and then it ended up being 20-9 at the end. And the team that had the stronger defense went up 3-0 and then lost 20-9. I
Mm.
got guys that can score, and I got good goalies. So it's hopefully everything just it's the commitment. Like it doesn't matter who you have now, right? It matters who shows up when we're playing.
Yeah.
And and we all know that if
Life,
you run,
yeah, life
that's the
can get
fear.
in the way.
That,
You never know. And really, honestly, a hot goalie can't be overstated. If you get a goalie who's either that good or even he doesn't even have to be that good. If he's on fire and he's seeing the ball great and he just happens to play a nationals tournament, that's amazing. As long as you can get to the nationals, that can really be what sets you over the top and you can get away with a little subpar maybe goal scoring. But where I guess I would ask Tim, how hard is it for you guys out in these non-traditional places to kind of recruit guys that have the hands? Because a lot of times, guys that have that delicate, it's not a skill you see a lot with soft hands and big bodies.
Um, it's honestly just asking field guys to come try it out and then see who has the gall to stick it out. I mean, we got some guys that got some hands. Some guys that 3 years ago when we first started didn't have the hands they have now, but we've kind of beaten it into them. We've done a little recruiting, and then we've also kind of I'm really excited about this year. We got a depth of talent that just using the Nashville luck. We've had a lot of people kind of move into the scene, and then just same thing. Pickup games, coaching guys are just like, wait, there's box lacrosse here. I grew up playing box out east, or I grew up playing box this, that, or the other. So we got a kind of a good mix of homegrown guys and then guys who played up north that just happened to just luck be it they moved down here to Nashville. We don't have anybody kind of like Cook. I'm trying to get a little more offensive so I watched a lot of his stuff when he was at Nationals of being that big shooter. But we got a lot of good skill guys that have adopted to the box game really well, and they're starting to kind of embrace that contact and that physicality instead of just shooting down the alley or shooting down the run, which was definitely our Achilles heel 3 years ago when we first started. Was guys were trying to split dodge and shoot down the boards. But we've got some guys now that aren't afraid to get to the middle, aren't afraid to get across the crease, anything like that.
Yeah. No, and that's and like you said, it's not even so much that guys just weren't able to handle the physicality. It's just not knowing it, not having been there, not knowing, how you have to adjust your body weight because that's a big thing. Like you played a very physical sport in football, so you kind of had some of that body contact. But if you don't have somebody who clears out the front of the crease, because that's another thing. Like Can-Am this year is getting rid of off-ball slashes, but you're not going to get rid of pushing guys out with a cross check. I mean, you could get rid of like a whack, obviously, but you're gonna have guys clear the front of that net. That's why they have the dotted lines in some places. I'm told is that's the spot you can clear the crease. I mean, Nate, you've played box lacrosse for quite a while. What do you think the biggest adjustment is as far as in that crease area, the defense pushing you out, or do you think it's similar to the front of a lacrosse infield where you might have a big defenseman that's just shoving you around?
it's not at all like field, um, at all. There's nothing similar to it at all. So in field, like you learn, like Tim was saying, like the alley dodges and dodging down the side and shooting opposite pike, like that's just what you do. You're not you try to get to the middle, but you don't, because the goal's so big, you can run down the side and shoot and either score, hit a guy on the crease wide open from a slide, or hit a guy on the backside. Where in box, the idea is to get to the middle and get a shot off. There's not enough time, and you want to improve your angle. When you're shooting on that smaller goal, you want to be as close to the center or the front of it as you can. And in field, you can get away with decreasing your angle a little bit because the goal is just so big. You don't have to go in the middle and mix it up. And guys that do tend to be, those are the guys that are your leading scorers. Those are the guys that teams want on the field. They're not afraid to get to the middle because I don't care if they get hit.
Yeah, yeah. There are guys who make careers being able to shoot on the field. At 3 yards above goal line, 2 yards above goal line, and you just can't do that in box. You have to fight your way to the middle. You have to get comfortable with somebody being on your hands to shoot. You
Yep.
know, I mean, there are guys that get paid good money to play the PLL that they could probably never shoot a ball on a box goalie because they're just not used to a guy being on their elbow the whole time. But if you can do that, it transfers the field. You can't. It doesn't go the other way,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, no, plus I mean you bring up a good point that the physicality of it, but also a box goalie has pads. You play on a smaller net. You've got it consolidated enough as far as your offense with the restraint line and stuff too that you can't play like a real far angle shot to try to draw them. You have to either get the goalie moving with a backdoor pass. You know, the pads are just big enough that it gives the goalie, some would say, an unfair advantage, but really if you know how to move them, they can't step out into position. So it's really more of a tactics thing than anything else.
Yeah. It's also like shooting. That's what took me the longest time shooting on a box goalie is like in field. I'm a big guy, whether I'm shooting with a pole or a shorty. If I'm at 12, 15 yards, I just put my body weight into it. And if it doesn't hit, center mass of the goalie, there's good odds it's going in because it's just high heat. You know what I mean? Whereas in box, you can shoot 100 miles an hour, but if you don't know exactly where it's going or if you don't know how to move the goalie before you shoot, it doesn't matter because the goalie's got so much armor on, he can't even feel it. You can shoot the hardest you want, the goalie's just gonna laugh at you. I would go into tournaments when I was younger. I'd be, cranking it from 10 feet out, thinking I'm gonna score, and it's big bud going the other way.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is having those leg pads. Like you said, it's not like they just absorb it. You're completely that ball's coming off hot. So when you shoot, like that, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's frustrating to some of the guys. It's fun to see at the beginning of the year every year when teams add new guys. You can tell who the field guys are because they're just trying to get to the outside, crank a shot as hard as they can. They have no idea where it's going. It's a yearly tradition down here in the South.
I love that. I was trying to drop the screen so you could see me laughing because that is my favorite. I watch a lot of kids start playing box, and oh my goodness, everyone. So we play with our youth league too. We don't even have a goalie. We've been trying to get somebody to wear some hockey pads. So we actually just put the plastic pylon in front of the net. So literally, like the goalie's not moving. It's a big plastic hockey goalie that's just going to stand there, and every kid will, when they get the shot, instead of like making a nice accurate pass around, and the sides are open too, so it's not even just the corners, and they crank it off there hard enough that it'll bounce it all the way down to the other end. We're like, all right, now go run 200 feet because you shot it as hard as you could, instead of just tucking it behind the plastic goalie that's not going to move.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Nate, as you have learned to kind of play box, and like you said, it's not even really the same sport. Now, how many, uh, I guess, as you get older, you talk about, and we've talked about on other podcasts, that necessarily you don't have to be the fastest athlete or have the most endurance. You have to know how to use, like, box IQ makes up for athleticism. We spent a lot of time talking about that, so I don't know if you kind of want to, reiterate that for some of our new box supporters.
Yeah, like I'm not a fast guy by any means, and I have the ability to still compete because I can run for 30 seconds or and then take a break for a minute, and that's really what box is when you're playing an actual game, you're going hard for about 22 to 28 seconds, depending on when the change is. And then generally you're going to sit out for 30 seconds while the defense gets it. And a lot of times you're not going right back in on offense. So you get another 30 seconds and then, and then it gets another 30 seconds. So you can get a minute and a half interval. You give me a minute and a half break and then I go out for 25 seconds. I can do that. I can do that for a long time. But you need, stick skills and just learning where to be. And I'm still learning. I've played box for, it's coming on 10 years. Yeah, it's been about 10 years now. And man, I wish I played it when I was younger. And that's why we're doing this, just so I can learn the angles and there's just little nuances to the game that you can only learn from playing or from someone that has the experience. So I'm lucky that I'm in a market where I have players that have played and I have coaches that have played and they can teach my guys a little quicker than someone in some of these other markets. But there's people out there that just don't know that box lacrosse is going on. Like I have a friend, a guy from Onondaga that lives out in Connecticut, and Paper City is one of the teams I'm playing a home and home with out of Massachusetts. And I hooked him up with them because I'm like, hey, did you know that there's a team like not far away from you? And he was like, no. So I was like, I know you missed playing. Get a hold of him. And now he's hooked up with them and he's probably going to play with them. And
That's
he can
awesome.
teach me a new team, that might not have all the experience. He can teach them. And now all of a sudden they have one guy, and that's all it takes. One guy can change everything in a market where they might not have it. So, like, if there's people out there that live in any of these markets where there's a team and you know anything about box cross, even if you're not going to play, reach out, try to help them out. One person can help make a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is one thing. So, like at the Nationals, we had several NLL players. You've got several
Uh-oh.
people that are not just players, but you've got coaches, you've got Hall of Famers. And this is a chance where we had a tournament essentially where you had the U21 Team USA goalie playing in a men's league tournament against a legend like Neil Paulus. I mean, that's such a cool experience for both guys. Neil's 48, years old, almost 50 years old, and he's still running with somebody who's under 21 who's out there playing for the Nationals. That's honestly my favorite part about this league is just seeing that and the evolution and how much, like you said, one guy does it. You watch the practice, you see everybody, seeing people do it, and then getting out on the floor, and you're like, wait, I'm playing against this guy, and it's just
Yeah.
yeah, you guys have a huge shout out to the NABLL for making this happen and for getting the Nationals film. So that's something a lot of people didn't think about either. Is really it was kind of a last minute thing, and the NABLL had reached out and they were like, "Hey, what can we do to get this?" And they spent the money, got us out there, and made sure we could stream it. And yes, it was not the best production, but I'm glad we have grown together because making sure that the social media is something that people need to hit up. If you want us to be able to promote your team, all you have to do is submit what you're supposed to submit, and then we have all that. And then any social media people that are interested, Tim is going to have access to the folder, so he can have a Google folder or Drive folder where everybody just you give him the email address that needs access, you upload them to there, and then every week on the show we're gonna get the highlights out. Plus, if you don't maybe have somebody who can do the best video editing, I'm gonna try to spend at least an hour a week going through videos that are sent into the NABLL as part of doing the show with the league. So send us what you got. We can clip them all together. If you have a whole team highlight, send it our way. That's how I think the sport's going to grow. Getting the kids to see it, getting some hot, some fresh music in there, and getting it playing. And I know necessarily the music I listen to is not always the best. I mean, Tim, how do you handle the social media? That is a big part of what you do with the NABLL. You're a little bit younger and hipper than some of us, but
I mean, I'm an old soul, so I don't try to do too much too fancy. I mean, if you go back and check all the old stories, 9 out of 10 times it's levels that's being played on the music, just because I know levels goes with lacrosse. But it's mostly just the graphics and stuff like that. Last year there was only a handful of teams that gave us stuff, so it was very limited. So it was just graphics. Whereas like this next year, just like you said, we want to get more into the reels, get more shorts on YouTube, get more highlights on YouTube. Because it just the more we can put it out there, the more it'll get reshared, the more it'll push it. And then just like Nate was saying, the more we can kind of get names out there and stuff out there, the more people can see it. And if guys move from their hometown and maybe they got to leave their team, maybe they don't realize how close they are to another team. I mean, we have 37 teams across the country. The goal eventually would be to get close to what the IBLA had, which was I think like 50 to 60 teams, across the country. So the more we can spread it, and I think social media is the ticket to do that. To just get it reshared, get it in people's eyeballs, and just have it out there for people to see and find.
and that's where these Reddit style forums, people, once you get in there, if you have questions, like as you look through, there's youth box. So if you need a drill, throw that in there. And there's so many guys in this league with experience. You get somebody like Nate, or Nate will get a chance to talk to one of his coaches and be like, hey, what do you guys, it's really, kind of one of the nicest ways, like you said, is to make this a spot where everybody can go and feel comfortable. And if we can get everybody using this and kind of using the hub, I think we could really grow this. Now, you guys have the forums you talked about, the PLL tickets. You guys have also made, when he asked modified, I didn't know if you were kind of talking if he did like an adaptive style lacrosse, which is I think what you were wondering.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was like sevens or the new sixes or anything like that.
Right, but you also had a partnership that came through with the Crossing Barriers. That's a group I've worked with several times. They're awesome. If anybody has any questions for how to start a program like that, I would suggest they get in touch with Scott Godfrey. He's got simple little things that can be done to make everybody feel included, and that he can really help grow things. But when we look at all of this in the forum, it only works as good as everybody signing us up. There was in the chats though, Tim, I noticed somebody asked if we could embed this into the website, and I know last year you guys embedded the national streams, so we could probably invest or embed the show as well.
Probably, actually, yeah. That'll be my homework for this week. Let me see if there's got to be a way we can do it because we were gonna do that last year or we did do that last year for the Nationals live stream. So it would only make sense that we'd be able to do this. We just got to probably copy the link in and put like the website key into the YouTube.
Yeah, that should be good, and we should be able to do it. And maybe we'll try a YouTube one as well, or a Facebook at the same time. We can post them both out there. That is some good ideas. We can run this dual stream. I'm thanking somebody in the comments for they love the scroll around the bottom, and that's the other thing, people. As long as you have your games scheduled, if you can get it done sooner rather than later, this makes it a lot easier for me to put them in if we get everything submitted through the league. Now, Nate, you kind of talked about it a little bit. You're getting to make some videos and you're getting to kind of play with this. How has that experience been for anybody who maybe is a little intimidated? Is it as bad as people think, or have cell phones and technology made it a little bit easier?
Cell phones are definitely easier. It's easier to create content. It's not that difficult. I got myself a little gimbal for $159. Um, a mobile gimbal. It's very nice. It's called like an Osmo 6. I have a nice iPhone, and it just it actually has active tracking, but that feature is broken a little bit for lacrosse. It actually worked really well. I tried it out in a basketball game, and it tracked the action because the ball's big enough to be able to kind of track it.
Yes.
Where the ball in lacrosse isn't big enough, it'll track the action, but it'll pick someone that's kind of moving through the square. So it's probably not the best solution, but it's very cool. It has a nice little tripod, and I'm just doing all my stuff with that right now. And I'm trying to find someone because I honestly, at this point, I'm realizing I don't have the time to do it all. I'm trying to find someone that can stream my games for me, record them at least. Um,
Now, one thing we had talked about, and one thing I think a lot of teams might be interested in, is doing post game streams as far as recording it, try to get a bunch of people to come in, and then doing a
yeah,
post production stream. And that's something that teams should look into. And if they have anybody who's willing to spend the time, if you can find anybody, I mean, I've told you before, I'm definitely willing to spend any time to teach somebody how to run a very simple stream, throw a simple scoreboard up there, and get guys going. I'll even teach you how to make the replays. Anything that anybody's wanted to learn, the NABLL is definitely making sure. I mean, you've got Coach Neil Powell, you've got Tony Gray, who's also a board member. He coaches for Team Mexico, and then you've got Neil coaching. He coached for the Binghamton Bombers, it says here, but he's also the Netherlands national field team. So, and they made a couple videos with that. There is so much that is given out from this league. But it really only, I know I sound like a broken record. It only works if everybody gets into it.
Love it.
But what we really need though is if people are having hard times with the website, or if you can't figure out something, please let us know, because that's something that we can make tutorials for if it's something. Because if you think you're the only one that can't figure it out because if you think, oh, I'm just not smart enough, it's really not that. It's like anything else in life. If you've never done anything like it before, it doesn't make sense. If you don't speak the language of running your phone, it's like, what does that mean?
yeah,
I deal with it with Paul, and unfortunately, we do have, and I love Paul, but he is definitely a boomer when it comes to technology. It doesn't, yeah. The guy on the bottom right is pretty cool. I love the chat. You have a lot of support here. The spirits are definitely our dominating force in the chat box. But guys,
yeah. That's good.
we have been doing this for at least an hour. I don't know because I actually started the stream timer early and the record timer late, so it's been whew, it's been a
Yeah,
lot to cover.
it's probably been about an hour. I bet.
But
Yeah.
We
thank
started
you
a few
guys
minutes
so
late.
much for joining us this week, and kind of what I would like to end it with is basically Nate, as we go forward into the year, what I'm assuming I know the answer, which will just be a nice season where you teach a lot of kids and everything grows. But honestly, what are you expecting out of as far as like growth for the team through the year? Because you have something that not a lot of people have, and I mean,
Yeah,
how that's got to be a pretty cool feeling. And like the anticipation going into the season with two Hall of Fame coaches has got to be like, okay,
yeah. I feel like you're setting me up here.
of course I am. You know, I'm trying to get a little
Uh,
smack
well,
talk here, just
like
a little bit.
quite frankly, like obviously we got started to give the kids an opportunity to play. And I needed a vehicle to do that, and this is it, right? But we want to win like every team. The goal is to win their division, go to nationals, and win nationals. And I think we have a legitimate opportunity to be able to do that. And if the guys can't handle that pressure, then I'll tell them, get ready, boys. That's what we're here for, right? We're here to compete and win games and get better all season, get better at box lacrosse, and grow the game here. And people support winners, right? It's a lot easier to grow the game when you're winning.
Yes. It's a lot easier to
So
grow the game when you're winning, and it's a lot easier. And one thing I've actually really noticed with box lacrosse, it seems to be the team that's winning is always smiling. Because when you're having fun, you seem to be playing well, and it
yeah,
it, it kind of goes hand in hand. And now, Tim, I mean, as you are getting ready to go into the season, how do you feel the experience is now? You guys are 2 years into the to doing this, and let's go.
Uh, pretty confident. This is our fourth year as a team. We've got a lot of guys who've kind of grown up with us that were they were baby field guys, freshmen in college that are now either junior seniors or they're out of college now. A lot of guys who got 3-4 years under their belt, and then we've had some new implants that have just moved to Nashville. So we got a new region, so no one in our region has been to nationals before. We're all existing teams. So Atlanta's kind of a rebrand, but we're all teams that no one's been to nationals before. So I'm expecting us to compete for a regional championship and then going and making some noise at nationals. As long as we don't run into Nate's team, that'd be fantastic. But um,
we got to
yeah,
get there first.
I expect us to make some noise at nationals and kind of put Nashville on the map. And then just like Nate said, it's a lot more guys show up to practices when you're winning. More guys show up to pick up when you're winning, and
Yeah,
it's easier to form a team and kind of have that like club effect. And then it's easier to get people to come to camps and clinics. If you can put a banner up, makes it a whole lot easier to sell the product and to just get people involved. And yeah, winning makes you smile, right?
Hands
Everybody loves
down.
it.
absolutely. And it's funny because it's a much different message than for my modified team. For that, I don't care if we win or lose, and I make that clear because I don't. It's about getting better every game, and it's the same at this level. We just want to get better every game, but we also want to win. So it's I have to put on a whole different hat for this than I do for the high school youth and that type of stuff. So this will be fun for me because you actually get to be competitive and want to win and see what happens there.
Mm-hmm.
You're still muted.
You're still muted.
Still muted my
You're,
I
you're doing
tried
a
to
great
mute
job.
myself quick to talk to those guys and then I accidentally flipped it where I
The
unmuted the
secret message
stream and
goes
muted
live.
myself. But anyways, Tim, as part of the media guy for the NABLL, what is the easiest way for these teams to get a hold of people in the league? Is it to go to the website at the contact form? Is it to throw a message on like the one of the social medias?
Whichever's easier. DM in Instagram, you'll get me or Otto immediately. Or doing the info, we'll get Rachel or Otto. If it's anything that wants to be for the show or you want to be on social media, it's email me directly, marketing@nabll.com. Or we'll get those drives out to everyone once the games get going. We can be able to just upload stuff without even telling us, and you and I will see it as people upload it.
Perfect. So thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate it, and we hope to see you all. And I mean, the spirits. I know you guys might not be quite as excited because next week, your coach won't be on there. But I promise you, we will have interesting people on this show every week. I hope to see all these spirits guys in here again. And on behalf of all of us here
I'll
at
try to get them.
Yes, BS Productions. I really appreciate everybody taking the time. I'll let you guys sign off, and then I'll kind of click us out.
Thanks for everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man. Pretty cool. Pretty excited.